What's the best vocation in Dragons Dogma 2, I hear you ask?
I'm dying.
Need I say more? Okay. Hello, my fellow Arisen, and welcome as we talk all things magic in Dragons Dogma 2. Having a look at the two spell-slinging vocations in the basic that is Mage and the advanced that is Sorcerer. Though, do not be fooled by that labeling. The Mage offers a lot that the Sorcerer can't, and vice versa, and both have their strengths, weaknesses, and worthiness to be your choice. I, personally, am very much Team Sorcerer, and indeed, it's the vocation I always kept coming back to in Dragons Dogma 1. That said, having a mage on your team is incredibly impactful and is a fantastic choice for a pawn. So before we get into specifics, let's talk broad strokes as to why it might appeal to you. Starting with the mage then, it is much more your jack of all trades, in that it has a much greater breadth of options, but it doesn't quite go as far in the damage direction that Sorcerer does. To be more precise, the mage brings to the table things like a shield that it can put on itself and allies that will absorb attacks coming in. It can cast healing magic, which is obviously very ridiculously useful, and it can augment it to be more potent too. You can build a really nice support caster. It shares similarities with Sorcerer, and they both slowly channel their spells, and I do mean slowly, we'll get to that. They can both levitate through the air, and new in Dragons Dogma 2, you can start actually invoking skills while in the air. But to return to Mage specifically, you now, unlike Dragons Dogma 1, have an exclusive monopoly, it seems, on the weapon boons, which are a big deal. The ability to enchant yours and your allies' armaments with fire or holy and so on and so forth to have advantage against the specific enemy you're fighting. This was a huge deal in the first game, and no doubt will be again here. Obviously, we've been lucky enough to play a little bit of Dragons Dogma 2 thanks to Capcom, and that really was borne out in that. So that gives Mage a much more distinct role. A multifunctional support caster that can keep your allies alive, that can keep your allies doing more damage, keep them able to freely move, and help control, lock down, and chip away at the enemy with some more smaller to medium level offensive magic. And that's really quite neat. If you like being that backline caster that makes sure everyone else is free to, well, fight to their potential, and being the heart, the cog, the engine of your party, a mage is a phenomenal choice for that. You get to oversee the battlefield and really give your support where it's needed in this sort of general-esque moving your, well, pawns around on a chessboard. Even things like summoning giant orbs of holy light that not only damage but quite literally reveal the area in a world where nighttime is much more dangerous, and learning to explore it safely for things that can only be achieved at night is very important, comes in, of course, super handy. Essentially, if you want a trick up your sleeve for any given situation and you want that trick to take the form of gorgeous magic, then the Mage is certainly for you. It's also a little bit faster paced with slightly shorter cast times than the Sorceress equivalent when you start getting to the higher tier spells. The heal is part of your core skills, so you always have it, and then the rest you choose from, while maintaining your basics like little blasts of magic out of your weapon that change depending on what weapon boon you have. And we now do have quick spell to hasten your incantation speed, which Sorcerer does share, which again will up the tempo a lot. And beyond that, the Mage uniquely can augment itself to just have faster stamina recovery speed. And when in Dragons Dogma, your stamina is everything. You obviously spend it to sprint, to jump, to climb, but it's also essentially your mana. And if you run out of it, you can't cast spells, you can't do much other than exhaustedly, pantily walk around until you've got your stamina back. So stamina management and balancing that is everything to your magical casters. And that is both easier and more plentiful on the mage, and you'll be firing more spells, more varied ones, more frequently. Whereas when we go over to the sorcerer, well, we take away the heals, we take away the buffing, we take away the lights and the shields, and we summon goddamn meteors! If your style is akin to ye old glass cannon, the sorcerer is certainly the one to choose. You will be casting for 3 to 5 business days as you slowly channel the most awesome displays of magical prowess in Dragons Dogma. And given Dragons Dogma has one of the best magic systems ever created, and it is even better in Dragons Dogma 2, that is a very enjoyable experience. It rewards careful positioning and timing. If you just go willy-nilly start casting, you will get absolutely annihilated by the giant Cyclops and his sorcerer smushing club. You need to make sure that your party composition and your choices allow for you to finish these really long incantations, but when you do, as previously mentioned, meteors! And not just meteors, giant maelstrom gales of ripping wind, earthquakes, or a new lightning mine that crackles in the air, deleting everything that comes near it. It really is the offensive powerhouse, and if you're not one, having a pawn as one to sit in the back casting these spells is really going to chunk away the health of your tankier foes. But I cannot overstate the satisfaction of doing it yourself. And now in Dragons Dogma 2, we gain a heavy attack called Galvanize to rapidly recover your own stamina, especially if you stand still. This is a game changer, and I cannot express it enough. In Dragons Dogma 1, I spent most of my time just kind of walking around like, okay, just give me a moment, I'll cast again in a second, oh my god, just essentially on 0 stamina forever, because you have to keep running and repositioning and sprinting, which burns your stamina, and then you can't cast the big spells, which cost like 75% of your stamina bar. So having this to weave in between is a huge improvement, not just to the class's potential, but to the gameplay experience, and is really exciting. And then you have the power of synergy. See, a sorcerer casting the same spell as another sorcerer will improve it. It will go off faster, it will hit harder. So if you go all in and have you as a sorcerer with 3 pawns that are a sorcerer, I mean, you're going to find it difficult to get the casts off because you're all just stood there defenseless and squishy while casting, but when it does go off, well, you're probably going to one-shot bosses. It really is that kind of deal. Essentially, if you, like me, enjoy seeing huge displays of glorious visual ecstasy, all of this magic swirling and its elemental fury filling the screen, and knowing that you did that, the sorcerer really is it. Wielding an archy staff that commands these powers, you have a spell for every kind of enemy and any kind of weakness you might come across, being able to channel it into more potent forms and generally devastate the battlefield in hugely large area attacks. You might end up killing a group of enemies over the next hill that you didn't even realize were there yet while fighting your current one. But you do need that protection, you do need a front line, you do need to be careful what you choose to fire off and when. There's quicker spells like Flagration for Jets of Flame, Levin for little lightning bolts, Frigor that does your icy shard explosion that does leave behind platforms that you can climb on to get to places and hidden areas. Mage can do that too, so that's a nice little bit of utility, but when you get to the really meaty stuff like meteors, you really have to pick your moment. but that is a moment to savor. No one has a higher magic stat than the sorcerer, and that determines its damage. It will always outdamage the mage, and likely, if left untouched, free to simply cast and cast and cast, outdamage all the other vocations too, but that is much easier said than done. If you want to be a wielder of potent magic that plays into this huge risk-reward gameplay where simply finishing the cast feels like an achievement that you really chose your moment well and oh yes, here we go, it's going off, then the sorcerer is going to do it for you. It really is that simple to put across. So that's kind of where it's at. Mage, an all-around utility-filled support that can still pump out its fair share of elemental damage, and sorcerer that takes that elemental damage fair share and goes, whoa, 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 there's nothing fair here, I'm having the entirety of it, and gives up pesky things like healing in the process. A very timing rewarding playstyle, and one that is immensely enjoyable to master. Both make great pawns for very different reasons, and being a sorcerer yourself with another sorcerer pawn to mirror spells and make each other more powerful is a very tried and true tested tactic. So that's my little look at and introduction to these classes. Two vocations that share a lot, but each have distinct edges, and a lot more so in Dragons Dogma 2. In the first game, pretty much Sorcerer was just kind of an upgrade on Mage, which was a shame. But now, Mage is retaining just to itself a lot of the utility that it used to share with Sorcerer, and is standing on its own 2 feet, or I suppose I should say, hovering with its own staff. For now then, let me know which one of these you favour, or indeed if your loyalty lies with a different vocation and you were just seeing what it might be like over here on the magical side of things. In any case, stick with us, there will be so much more Dragons Dogma 2 to come, and you don't want to miss any of it. I'll also be back after the game releases with a proper full-on guide to these classes in a more direct in-game sense. Until then, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.